Hello guys, today we will be covering hoisting in JavaScript. Um, Hoisting is basically literally translates to lifting up, and that is exactly what JavaScript does with your declarations. Basically, it lifts up all the declarations that you made before executing the code. So this goes with function declarations and variable declarations, but it treats the variable declarations a little differently. So whatever is var declared, it treats it differently. Whatever is let const class declarations, it treats it differently. And this is primarily because of the scope of each of these. So yeah, let's get into what hoisting is and how it is implemented in JavaScript and why you should be aware of how it happens so that you can avoid making common mistakes that people make while writing JS code. So the best part about function declarations being hoisted is that you can literally use a function before you declare them or define them. So what happens is, let's take this example and we will put it in StackBlitz. StartBlitz is just a website where you can run whatever code you want. So here you can see that first I'm just declaring the function here after using them. So ideally, this is how you would write. You would first declare the function called sum. It takes two parameters and it returns the sum. It prints it in console. It doesn't return it. It prints the sum in the console. So here you can see that sum is equal to 5. And this is how we generally write code in C, C++, Java, etc. First we declare the function and then we call the function. But in JavaScript, what you can do is you can literally call the function, and then even if you define it, what happens while executing the JS code, the JS interpreter picks this up and it moves it above to the top of the scope of the code executing. This is very important to remember, guys. The hoisting happens to the top of the scope, not to the top of the global code, but just to the top of the scope. So, okay, so this is what is happening with functions. This is called value hosting because you are literally able to access the values before you declare them. Okay. Whereas with var declarations, if you do it normally, var x is equal to 3 and you're printing x is equal to 3 here. However, let's say we are taking the declaration and we are putting it after the consumption of that variable. Here it will be undefined. So that means var variable declarations, you can use those variables, but they will be undefined until the code gets executed. So they will not throw any error, but the value will be undefined. So this is a part where people make a lot of mistakes while coding. So they will assume that the value is existing. However, that value will be there only after execution of line number 14, where the declaration is happening. So here, if I print console log X after declaration again, here the value will be there. Okay. The initialization has to happen before you use the variable. JavaScript will not throw any errors, so this is something to keep in mind. Whereas for, let's say let, so here you can see let y equal to 3 and console log y equal to 3. That is getting printed here. If you keep the declaration of let or const or any class after the utilization, it will throw a reference error. A reference error is thrown saying that you are using the value before initializing it. So JavaScript will not allow you, it will throw an error basically. So it at least gives you a warning of sorts. So these are the three important types and how they behave. So we can go through it once again. Function declarations, it's all fine and good. You can use it before declaring it. JavaScript will automatically move up the declarations to the top. And with var, you can use it. It will not throw an error, but the value will be undefined. So that is a point to note. Whereas for let, const, and class declarations, JavaScript will throw a reference error. Okay. So now there are certain things to remember here when you understand hosting. Main part is the how you use functions versus function expressions. So function expressions are nothing but instead of defining the function name, etc., you will have a variable and you will use the function definition as the value to be initialized into that variable. So let sum equal to function definition. So the type of sum will be a function, but it's a function expression. So the behavior during hoisting will be unique. So we can see that right now. So if you are defining some variable and you see type of sum, it will continue to be a console.log of type of sum. You can see that it's a function. However, the behavior during hoisting is different from a function for function expressions. So console.log of, okay, let us instead do this. So we'll call the sum function and we will pass 2, comma 3. And our expectation is that it prints sum equal to 2, 5, 2 plus 3, 5. That is being printed here. Perfect. However, if you are using, if you're making the function call before you're declaring it, it says it throws a reference error again. Okay. So this is something to keep in mind. You can hoist functions, whereas you cannot hoist function expressions as you would expect with functions. Point number 2 to remember is so here, if reference errors are thrown while declaring and using let declarations, let y equal to 3, this works. I move up the utilization before the declaration, it throws an error. So why is it even a part of hoisting if it is going to throw an error? So why do we take this scenario under consideration itself? Because while declaring y equal to 3, it affects the code above it. Any code above it within that function scope will get affected. I'll show this to you with an example. So here you can see let x is equal to 1 and I'm just calling a function here just to change the scope. And here the function state it's defined as you're just printing that value. So when x is equal to 1 is there, here you're printing it, then it's all fine and good. X is equal to 1 gets printed. What happens when I introduce a local scope for this? When I define x, when I change the scope of this variable x from the global scope to a local scope, x is equal to 2, that time it prints 2 because this x will start referring to the local scope definition, not the global scope. Okay. What happens when I remove this part from here and I add it here? It throws an error because right now this affects the code that was above it within that scope. Correct? So this has an impact. This declaration has an impact here because what JS is doing is it's trying to move the let up to the top of the function scope. But since it is a let declaration, it throws a reference error because you cannot consume that value before you initialize it. That's what the reference error shows here. Cannot access X before initialization. So that is it for that part. And the next part is why do we have the differences while consuming variables, the var versus let. That is because the scope of var and scope of let or const, etc. are different. The scope of var is a global or function scope, that is execution context level scope, whereas let is block scoped. This also we can observe it with a quick example to get a clear idea. So here I am defining two global variables and one of those variables x is let declared, one is y var declared. So this is global or function scope, whereas let will be block scoped. So I'm printing the global values of x and y here, 1, 1. And inside a block of code, what I'm doing is I'm redeclaring x and y and we will see what is happening. So when I declare x equal to 2, var y equal to 2, and I print them at the local scope level, they both are printing 2. But this declaration of x will not affect the global x, whereas var declaration of y within a block will also affect the global y. So here, since I made var y equal to 2, what it does is it modifies the 2 at the global level as well. That is why when you print x is equal to and y equal to global levels, again, it changes the value to 2 for only for var, whereas for let it does not. So that is it, guys. If you have any suggestions to improve this tutorial, you can leave it in the comments below. Thank you for watching.